happens. That happens when one of, okay, well, so I would say, in order to be self-aware, right? In order to know if you are following the ways of the world or following the ways of God, honestly, I see only really two ways where we can train ourselves to do that. The first way is communication with God. That means reading the Word and prayer, right? You know, one of the reasons we stress to you over and over again that, you know, you need to have a devotional life with God. You need to have a prayer life with God. It isn't because we want to be religious and that, hey, if you do that, you get plus points, you know, with God and with your pastor or something like that. That's not how it works. You know, the reason we tell you to do that is because God is going to renew you and change you and transform you through that process. Right? God, through His Word, He's gonna shine light into your life. He's gonna say, yeah, you know, you used to believe this, but this is the truth that you should believe. Right? I think of my own life. I lived for the longest time thinking, you know, I gotta be better. I gotta perform better. It's all about performance with God. If I perform better, you know, if I'm perfect before God, that's the only way God will accept me. Perfection. You know, I need to do better. It's all about my performance. And I lived for so long doing that until one day reading the Word, God was just like, don't you understand? It is by grace that you have been saved. It's by grace. It's not by anything you've done. It's not going to be by anything you're going to do. It's by grace. Don't you understand what grace means? And He had to drill that into me. Drill that into me. That's truth, right? That says, it's by grace you have been saved. And this not of your own works. Nothing that you've done. This is not of your own works. But it is the gift of God so that no man can boast. So that I can't say, oh, well done, Isaac. You got to the top. That's why God loves you and accepts you. Right? God's like, no, that's not how I work. Right? You know how the way the world works? The way the world works is, hey, Isaac, you got to perform. You got to perform in church, in your family. You got to perform before God. Because look at the world around you. It's all about performance, right? It's all about you want to beat out all your other friends so that you can get into the best schools. You want to outperform all your colleagues and coworkers so that you can get that raise, right? It's all about performance. Look at the world around you. Right? And it's so easy to fall into that lie. And God's like, that's not how I work. That's why we need that communication with God. But the second thing that will help us in our awareness is community with other believers. And I truly believe that. That's why, you know, I always encourage people to come to church. It's not just because of the Sunday service, but it's because of the community. That you have a community of brothers and sisters who love you and care about you and can see maybe the blind spots that you can't see. Because all of us have blind spots. We have areas where we think we got it down, we think we're good, and other people are looking at us and like, do you see that thing you're doing? I don't know if you noticed that, my brother, but I don't think that pleases God. You know, and having people like that point out those blind spots in our life, lovingly, of course, but speaking the truth in love, right? We need that. We need to be aware of how we're influenced by this world. We need to be aware of the ways that we think that we've carried over from our old life into this new life and how we can get rid of those things. Right? Those are important. Because if we don't realize those things, oftentimes the lies that we believe in can lead to idolatry in our life. And that's kind of leads us to the fifth and final word of judgment from God. This idea of idolatry. Right? When you start believing the lies of this world, so often it leads to idolatry. So look with me at Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 18 through 20, right? 18 through 20. It says here, of what value is an idol, since a man has carved it? Or an image that teaches lies? For he who makes it trusts in his own creation. He makes idols that cannot speak. Woe to him who says to wood, come to life, or to lifeless stone, wake up. Can it give guidance? It is covered with gold and silver. There is no breath in it. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth be silent before him. Now, I don't know about you, but when I first read that, I was like, wow. I honestly think this was like a mic drop moment from God, you know. It's like he's saying, let me paraphrase this in my own way. It's like God saying, like, dude, are you guys stupid? I mean, seriously, why are you worshiping an idol? You made the stupid thing yourself. So how is it that you, the creator, you're worshiping the thing that you created? How is it that you think the thing that you created is smarter than you and can teach you and have wisdom? How is it that a dead, breathless idol is taking your trust? How does that even make sense? Let me tell you who you got to trust. You got to trust the creator of heaven and earth. So y'all better shut up and show me some respect. Okay, probably God wouldn't speak like that. It's a little too gangster, right? But you guys get the idea of what God's trying to say here, right? You get the picture? God's like, I cannot wrap my head around this. This makes no sense. Right? The idea of idolatry to God is so heinous. You've turned away from your creator to worship something that you created. The sequence doesn't even make sense. If you created something, you should be asking worship from the thing you created. That makes more sense, right? And here you are, human beings, we're creating these idols, and we're worshiping what we created. And God's like, just think about that. Stop and think about that for a moment. Right? It'd be like, if I had my iPhone, right? And the iPhone is a really cool creation. You can do a lot with it. It does a lot of things, right? You could read your email on there, right? Look at news, play your games. It can remind you to wake up and all this stuff, right? But what would happen if you saw me started worshiping my phone? I mean, seriously, I'd be like, oh, Lady Siri, please grab me my wish. What are the magic lotto numbers? Please just tell me. And then Siri's like, I don't understand what you're saying, right? Or, oh, Lady Siri, I know you have the power of healing. Please heal me. You probably look at me, you're like, okay, there's something wrong with you, dude, right? It's like, okay, first of all, we all know the iPhone can't do that, right? It's not within its capabilities, but why are you talking to it like that? Like it's an actual being, something that's real, right? You would think I'm crazy too. But that's exactly what God is saying. He's like, this is so ridiculous that people would do this. Which is why to God, Babylon was such a joke. Because they were literally getting their advice. They were putting their trust and asking for blessings from these lifeless idols who were false gods. And it's scary to think about this for a moment because that whole culture and empire, they're basically basing their morals, their cultural practices, and their whole identity on these false creations. Can you imagine that? And God here is basically, in this passage, he's basically saying that when he brings judgment upon Babylon, and he destroys Babylon, which he did, it's going to show them how worthless and lifeless their idols are because their false gods couldn't even protect them. God's going to be like, I'm going to prove it to you. Just watch. Right? And that's kind of always been the story of God and idolatry. If you remember the story of Elijah and the prophets of Baal, do you guys remember that story from maybe your children's Sunday school? Right? This was a time of crisis for Israel. Israel had a bad king, King Ahab. He married a bad wife who was a Baal worshiper and brought in all these prophets. And basically, Elijah was the one that God chose to speak out against the king. And so he was like, okay, let's prove to see who really is God. Right? Why don't we set up 2 altars, and you pray to your God. If he sends fire down, then that'll prove that he's truly God. And I'll pray to my God too. And if he sends down fire, then that'll prove that he's God. Right? And so the prophets of Baal go first. Right? And they're praying to their God, right? They're screaming, God, bring down fire, right? They're cutting themselves, Oh, if we cut ourselves more, maybe he'll hear us. I don't understand the logic of that, but, right? We'll scream, and then, the whole time Elijah's like, maybe he's asleep, Scream a little louder, right? Cut yourselves a little harder, He's like, yeah, mutilate yourselves. Yeah, maybe that'll get, he's just like taunting them, right? And nothing happens for the longest time. And then Elijah, he's like, okay, just so you guys know, I'm not cheating. Pour a lot of water on my altar. Just pour it on, because we all know, right? If it's wet, it's really hard to burn, And they pour the water, and then he prays a simple prayer, and then bam, ball of fire comes down from heaven, right? Can you imagine that? I'd be so scared. It's like ball of fire, bam, right on the altar. And at that moment, there's a realization from everyone in the crowd. Everyone's like, oh, deep. Right? Especially the prophets of Baal. They're like, oh no. Right? Because immediately Elijah's like, okay, everyone, you all know that they're false, so take your swords. We're going to kill them. Right? Literally, that's the story. And so they kill all the prophets of Baal. That's punishment, right? And I'm just like thinking, dang. But that's what we're talking about. We're dealing with idolatry. God does not stand for idolatry. Now, I know what you guys are thinking. You're like, well, okay, that's true, but we don't worship carved idols, right? Hopefully none of us have carved images in our home that we worship, right? We don't do that. But God talks about how we can equally set up lifeless idols in our hearts, which we worship. Right? It doesn't have to be a physical entity. Right? It could be something in your heart that you put in front of God, that you worship more, that you put more value in, put more of your time and effort and energy and recognition into than God. And there's so many things. That's why it's so easy to go into idolatry. It could be, fame, right? Maybe you're a famous person, right? You want to strive to be recognized. Maybe it's power, right? Your idol is power. You want control. You love control. Maybe it's your status because you like people recognizing you for who you are. Maybe it's your work because your work is your identity. It's like, this is what defines me. I'm nothing without my work. Maybe it's your intelligence, your education, right? Oh, I have a PhD. Look at me, right? I'm so smart. Maybe it's ministry, even. Wow, look at what I've done for God. Maybe it's your children. Your children can become your idol. It's like, all I care about is my children, raising them, making them better than other people's children, right? And here's the thing, right, that I've realized. If you look at all these things, these things that we make into idols in our life, right? These are oftentimes false gods that the world tells us to go and worship, right? The world tells us a lie, right? Which is why it's so important to be careful of the influence of the world, right? The world tells us, hey, you'll have security. You'll have security when you make a lot of money. And so you're like, oh, okay. So I need to make a lot of money. I need to, like save up as much as I can, get ahead as best as I can, right? And that can become an idol, right? And these are kind of lies that the world tells us, and we become convinced of these things, and they become our idols. This is something that I realized, okay? There are two reasons why people worship such false idols, whether it's physical idols or it's an idol in your heart. Right? There are two reasons why people worship them and continue to worship them. And the first reason is that we want some type of benefit from worshiping this idol. Do we perceive some type of benefit, right? Back in the day, back in the time of Babylon, right? You would worship, for example, the Greeks would worship the god of war, right? Ares. Why? Because we're going into battle and we need a god on our side, right? So we need to worship the god of war to bless us so that we can win the battle. But you know what the flip side of that is? If I don't worship the god of war, he's going to make me lose. He's going to curse me. It's like a double bind, right? It's like, okay, well, if you worship it, okay, you get a benefit, but if you don't worship it, you're going to get cursed. So either way, you have to worship him. There's no way out of it. And it's kind of the same thing with these idols in our heart. We fall into the same trap. We're like, well, I'm someone that needs control. I need power, right? So if I seek after power, I will have control. If I don't do that, my life, I don't know what would happen. I would go crazy without power, without control. My finances, I need finances. I need to feel secure. I need to feel like I'm providing for my family, which I'm not saying is a wrong thing, but then if that's what you're preoccupied with, like, all I need is to get more finances. If I don't, right? If I don't do this, what will happen? What if we lose all our money, right? We get trapped by this type of thinking, right? Oh, I need to work hard. That's what defines me. My work defines me. If I don't have my work, I'm nothing. What am I at? What am I? Oh, if I don't train my children up the right way, I got to, right? I got to train my children up the right way, because if I don't, all the other parents at church, they'll look at me and like, man, you're such a horrible parent, You don't even know how to train up your child. Do you see what's happening? All these examples. You're trapped by the lies of idolatry. And the whole time, God is saying, no. You're looking in the wrong places. You're looking in the wrong places. You're setting your trust in the wrong things. You want security? I can give you eternal security. Because the security of this world is not going to last long. I can tell you that. You want identity? You think your work will define your identity? What if you lose your job, which is very likely? You could lose your job, you could lose everything. Then what? What will your identity be based on? But I can give you an eternal identity. You see, God is like, you should turn to the Creator. You should turn to the Creator to find those things, to find security, to find meaning in life, to find your identity. You shouldn't be turning to these idols that you yourself have set up. Right? And that's so important for us today. Because I want to ask, if Jesus came back today, like literally he was standing amongst us, what would he find in your heart? What would he find in your heart? Would he find someone that is focused on him, that makes him a priority? Or would he find our hearts full of idols, distractions, lies from the world that we believe in? Would he find lifeless constructs in our heart that we worship? Right? Do we have idols in our hearts? We need to ask ourselves that question. Because if we do, we need to start cleaning house. Right? Friends, like I said last week, we are called to be set apart. Right? When you put your faith in Jesus Christ, right, there was a transference from the realm of Satan to the realm of God. You become children of God, sons and daughters of God. Okay? And when that happens, there is no place for idolatry in our lives. There's no place for conformity in the world. There's no place for vanity, self-security, or greed. The only way for us as believers to survive in this world is to live by faith in Christ Jesus. The only way that we can see evil in this world and not succumb to it, not bow to its pressure, is to live by faith in Jesus Christ. The righteous will live by faith. The only way we can see the immorality and the unpunished sin in this world and not lose hope is if we live by faith in Jesus Christ. The righteous will live by faith. When everyone else is cheating to get ahead and they're getting away with it, the righteous have to live by faith that God will deal with it. When your friends are all getting into drugs, sex, and alcohol, and they're trying to pressure you to do the same thing, to live the same way, God calls on us to live by faith. The righteous will live by faith. Right? When the injustices of life rain down upon you, God says, live by faith, not by sight. When nothing God does seems to make sense, what are you supposed to do? What are you supposed to do? Tell me. What are the righteous supposed to do? You can say it out. I'm actually asking to see if you... What do the righteous do? The righteous live by faith. Right? I repeated that like at least 4 times, right? Making sure you guys caught on. So, as the worship team comes up, and we go into our time of reflection, I want to read you Habakkuk's response at the end of Habakkuk. And just end our journey in Habakkuk in this way. The last chapter of Habakkuk is this beautiful prayer that Habakkuk prays. And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to read the beginning and the end because it really summarizes and shows you the heart of the prophet. Where he is at and kind of how we should be as well. Right? He says in chapter 3, verse 2, Lord, am I going backwards or forwards? Okay, here we go. Lord, I have heard of your fame. I stand in awe of your deeds, O Lord. Renew them in our day. In our time, make them known. In wrath, remember mercy. He's like, dear God, I acknowledge what you're going to do. I see what you're going to do now. Make it come to pass. Make it real by your own timing because I trust in you. And then at the end of that, at the end, chapter 3, verse 17 to 19, it says, though the fig tree does not bud, and there are no grapes on the vines, though the olive crop fails and the fields produce no food, though there are no sheep in the pen and no cattle in the stalls, right? Though all these things are happening, though the world is going from bad to worse, my situation is not improving, Habakkuk says, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will be joyful in God my Savior. I will be joyful even if I can't see with my eyes what God is doing. That's Habakkuk's response. Right? The sovereign Lord is my strength. makes my feet like the feet of a deer. He enables me to go on the heights. Right? No matter what your circumstance, you can have joy. You can rejoice in the Lord. Because you've seen what God has done in your past. You see what He has done in the Word of God, and you can trust Him for the future and the present. That's what God is calling us to. So let's spend some time just reflecting upon this. I want to just invite all of us now into a time of prayer. So would you just bow your heads and close your eyes? And I want this to be between you and God. It's you and God. It's a private conversation you're having with God. And for this first prayer, I want you to really just be honest with God. Okay? Go to Him and say, God, would you illuminate me? Would you shine a light upon my heart? Let me know if any of the things I do, the things I say, the things I think about have been influenced by the world. And just show that to me. So just ask God to show you right now. Just spend some time right now meditating upon that. Meditate upon that.
The grandeur quake before, moved by the sound of His voice. The seas that are shaken and stirred can be calm, broken from my regard. And through it all, my eyes are on You. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on You. It is well with me.
I want you to also now take some time to just come to God and just ask Him. Ask Him to reveal idols in your heart. Things that you put above God, things that you worship, literally worship, instead of God. And if you know what that is already, go to God and just repent. Go to God and say that you're sorry, that you're going to turn to Him, that you're going to let go of these idols, you're going to get rid of them in your life. Spend some time to do that before God.
Far be it for me to not believe, even when my eyes can't see. And this mountain that's in front of me will be thrown into the midst of the sea. Through it all, my eyes are on You. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on You. well with me.
Yes, Heavenly Father, we come before you, Lord God. We thank you that you are God that is faithful, that we can trust. That is why you call us to live by faith. Lord God, I pray, Lord, that we would be aware of how the world tries to influence us, that we would be aware of idols that we have set up in our hearts because of lies that we believe. Lord, would you shatter those lies? Would you break it, Lord? Because we don't want to trust in anything that we have made, anything that we have built up, Lord, anything that the world can give us. But Lord, we want to trust in you, in your name alone. So Lord God, once again, we want to say we dedicate our lives to you fully. We thank you, Lord God, that you're faithful to cleanse us, to purify us, to renew us, to restore us. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Let's continue our time of reflection. Let's stand and let's sing together.
Sing together through it all.
Through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well, and it is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways and ways still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways and ways still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways and ways still know His name. The ways and ways still know His name. It is well with my soul.
Sing together, church. It is well.
It is well with my soul. It is well with my soul. It is well.
Yes, Lord, it is well with my soul. Especially when we put our trust in you. Like the prophet Habakkuk says in the end, though the olive tree does not produce olives, though the fig tree does not produce figs, though the land is barren and there are no sheep in the stalls, though things may not seem like they're going well, though it may seem like injustice goes unpunished, though things may go from bad to worse, Lord, we trust in you, not in anything else. Help us to remember that. We cannot trust in anything else. If we are to survive in this world, then the righteous must live by faith. We must live by faith in Jesus Christ. Help us to do that as we go forth from this place. That we would see your presence, and we would believe in your promises and trust in you all the days of our life. Thank you, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. God bless you all. We'll be taking a 5-minute break around 12:05 to 12:10. We'll start heading over to the other side because there's communion this week. So we'll be joining the Mandarin side for communion. Right? So take a bathroom break, get some coffee, and then we'll meet at the Mandarin side for communion.
Trust in Him. The waves and winds still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and winds still know His name. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The waves and winds still know His name. The waves and winds still know His name. It is well chorus 2. It is well. And it is well. So let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways of wind still know His name. Let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways of wind still know His name. Let go, my soul, and trust in Him. The ways of wind still know His name. The ways of wind still know His name. And through it all, my eyes are on you. Through it all, it is well. Through it all, my eyes are on you, and it is well.
We're supposed to sing it. We're supposed to leave it and be like,
It is well.
And then just walk off the stage. Goodbye, everyone. Don't they do that? Don't they just there's that and then everyone just walks off.
It is well.
It is well. And then the
and into the next song. That's great. All right. Thank you, worship team. Woo!
Thank you, Joel.
Thank you guys. Praise God. That was great. I was like, oh, these songs look familiar. It sounds like we sang them recently. It's like, oh, this is last week's set. All right, woo!